It was our first combine we bought that started with a 4 at the beginning. So in the 400,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Brian Scott, The Farmer's Life, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Vance.
I'm glad you're here, man. You are in town for the No-Till Conference.
That's right.
Where are you in from?
I'm from Northwest Indiana, Monticello or Adelphi, depending on which town I pick. Halfway between Indy and Chicago. That's what I tell most people.
And you have this very slow, monotone, mellow voice. Is that an accent? Does everybody up in northern Indiana sound like that?
Well, see, I think of it as it's like a neutral.
Okay.
Like Indiana's like, well, until you get down to like Bloomington, where that other school is, and they talk funny. But I think we're pretty neutral, and then you get up like Lake County, they start talking Chicago, Wisconsin type accent.
Yeah, with the uhs and the...
Yeah, my wife does that.
Interesting. So you're proposing that your accent is more of like a beige then? Well, the reason I think it's a fun way to start because you are one of the most understated people that I know, but you're also one of the probably best known farmers around in the United States. I mean, you're in the top 5% of farmers that people have an experience with.
Yeah, that might be right. I say I'm not as cool as I used to be. There's a lot of new people out there, but
how did you get into the world of consumers, just regular people knowing The Farmer's Life, Brian Scott?
So it was in 2011. I think I kind of had to figure it out after. I think it was the magazines, like the trade magazines, were talking about getting out there a little bit. And that sounded kind of interesting to me. I didn't even have Facebook. I didn't want to get Facebook. And then we were actually on vacation in Hawaii. And my mom has family that actually farms out there. And
that's not bad.
It was the last day before we went back. I was in bed, couldn't go to sleep before we went to the airport. And I was like, I'll download the WordPress app and start my blog because I can't sleep. I think I've gone back and deleted those since. My first post was probably 3 sentences or something like that.
Was it something you'd thought about or just like a meteor of an idea hit you?
No, I had thought about it probably for a few months. And then just in that downtime boredness, I was like, no, let's do this and see what happens.
Because that's early enough that there was a time when people started a blog, it was like, okay, that guy's got a blog too.
Yeah.
But you're talking about the time, or at least within the industry, that this would be extremely rare. There were not very many farmer blogs, or if there were, you didn't know about them.
I wouldn't have known about them either.
Right.
And I probably had the blog before I had Facebook, not too far apart.
And any idea where this is all heading? Do you have a concept of like, I'm going to start this, and this will take me all over the world? And
nope.
Okay.
No, just I don't know, something to kill time or put my tractor cab or shower thoughts, whatever you want to call them.
Well, it's interesting because it's an incredibly extroverted thing to do, and maybe not extroverted in the sense that you're not gaining energy from other people right in front of you, but it's like a really social thing to do.
Yeah.
And you're up here in the years that we've known each other, I've kind of always thought of you as an introvert. You know, you're very fast on the draw with texts and messages and things like that, but you're kind of quiet.
Yeah. And I get that from my dad. My wife gives us a hard time because Dad and I can be in the same room with a bunch of people and have a conversation and nobody knows what either one of us said because we're so quiet. Oh. So I just come back with, well, maybe you're not supposed to know.
Wow.
But no, I'm pretty fairly introverted. I don't know. Not like I want to go out and be with people and stuff, but like I don't mind being alone.
Yeah. I guess if you're going to be a farmer of some acres, you've probably got to be comfortable being alone.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be days that the only people I see are my dad and the 3 people that live in my house.
Days where you're like that?
Yeah, when I'm, harvest and planting, not super long periods. But
that's something that I didn't understand about farming until I got deeper into it. And I grew up in a small town in central Illinois. Right. So there were fields within walking distance of my house. Like as a little kid, I was near a dairy farm maybe every other day. So I was around it, but I didn't understand that when it goes time to plant, it is like a bell goes off and everybody has been priming their tractors, their planters, their everything to go. And then you go as long and as hard as you can until all the fields are planted.
Yeah. So like, what's January 7th today?
Yeah.
It's ready to go right now.
Your stuff is.
So in 3.5 months, when it's right, it's go time.
I saw you this last week. You were polishing your tractor. Was that on Facebook or YouTube? The combine. Yeah.
So. And
it looked like this beautiful, shiny green.
Yeah.
Does every farmer keep their stuff that shiny?
I mean, a lot do. Well, I guess we kind of have a reputation for being really clean in the neighborhood. But then if you follow hashtag #AndyClean on Twitter, it's like multiple levels above what I do.
Really?
Like what you saw of my combine, you can get underneath his, and it looks like that.
So is he actually like a feature, somebody that's out there on social media talking about how he cleans his tractor?
Yeah, I don't know if he started that hashtag or other people started it, but like #AndyClean is a hashtag.
Oh, that is funny.
Because if I say it right, Andy Pastor, I think is his last name.
Oh, I know Andy.
He's from Canada, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know him, but
yeah. He's like, my cleanliness doesn't hold a candle to what Andy does.
Oh, that's interesting. And this is just like with cars or anything else. Like when somebody gets really, really good at something, if they post photos of it, their tribe comes around and says, that's respect for that.
Oh, yeah. And we even did a combine trade one time, and we cleaned stuff pretty thoroughly, not like Andy, but getting down to the nitty gritty on price. And I was like, hey, you've seen our stuff. You don't have to pay a guy to be in the wash bay for 2 days. It's ready to go. So give us another $1,000 or whatever.
Hey, and did they pay it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's true of everything in life, right? Like if you care about cleaning things up, and I didn't learn this until I was in my 30s. Like my family that I grew up with has this sense that I'm like, Pigpen, like there's always like a little cloud of dust and everything following me. But in my life now, I am super organized. Like all my clothes are folded. Everything is put away. The bed is made because I figured out that if I just follow those rules, then that's done in my life, and I don't have to worry about finding things or remembering or where, the weight of having something on your mind of like, I know I need to get that done, but I'm not doing it. All of my house chores are like that.
Yeah. But see, my wife, Nicole's going to listen to this, and she will tell you that does not
translate to
home for me, which is pretty much true. Like if you go to our shop, when we finish doing something, every tool is back in its home. Everything, the shop floor. Anytime I take a picture of the shop, like people give me a hard time for how clean the floor is. I'm like, we didn't clean it yet. But yeah, I kind of get in trouble.
That's interesting.
It doesn't transfer for some reason.
For me, like things in the when I started to get into this like habit of cleaning, it was almost like a competition with myself. It was like my wife was like, whatever my level was, she was fine with it. But I probably annoy her on the being too organized because I'm like, let's play a new game called Clean Out the Closet. And your son, is he an organized guy?
The oldest is. He has always been organized ever since he was little. Matthew's the oldest. He used to, especially when he was little, he'd take all his tractors or cars and like line them up against the baseboard in the hallway. If you turned one around backwards when he wasn't looking, he would know it.
Really?
Yeah.
And he wanted them put in the right order.
Yeah. So, and he's still like that. He just turned 10 2 days ago. And we have a 4-year-old too. And everybody says they're opposite. So we always say like Matthew needs to know before he does something new, he wants to know everything about it.
Oh.
Before he tries it.
Okay.
And then Andrew is like, what if we set it on fire and push it off a cliff?
Yeah, I'm like him. Happens? That's like me. I was that way. Can we just do it faster? Can we just try now? Can we go now?
Yep.
And Are you prepared for the challenge of parenting that brings? Because you're going to clearly side with one and pit them against each other would be your natural.
Yeah, we'll see. It's different. Andrew, he's kind of mellowed a little bit, but it's so funny because Matt, it's good on both of them. He's Mr. Super Organized Planner, but just the other day, we were watching a basketball game and Nicole gave Andrew a bath during halftime. And after halftime, it's pretty much bedtime after halftime, he was just like totally naked in the living room on the rug, like making up stuff with his imagination and all his toys and calling them different things that they aren't physically what they are. And Matthew like never did that. And we just both looked at each other like, they're just so different.
Wow.
Yeah.
That really is like a creative brain or something like ticking in there that isn't like the other one.
Yeah. So they both got, and who knows, maybe they'll be coworkers.
Your
someday.
son Matthew is actually kind of famous because he was in a Facebook video of him driving a tractor was he combining?
The first video was back in 2016. He was turning the planter around.
That's right. And so you see him in the seat. Well, why don't you describe it?
Yeah. So if you look at the windshield in the tractor, there's a metal strip. So like the GoPro magnet fits really nice up there. You get a whole view of the cab. So I had it with me. And so 2016, I'd been doing the Facebook for like 5 years. And I'd gotten up to 17,000 followers. I had no plan or anything. I was just like, well, the GoPro's here. I'll turn it on when he turns around here at the end.
And your Facebook is mostly just you doing videos and posts about
day-to-day farm stuff,
right?
For the most part, and then blog posts or whatever. Which I don't really use hardly anymore. But anyway, so I'm sitting in what you call the buddy seat. He's in the driver's seat. So it's it was literally his first time not sitting in my lap doing it. Like that video is the first time. Like we didn't do like a few rounds so I'd get a good video. Like this was the first time.
It looked like he'd been doing it a long time and you just stuck the camera up there.
He's a super observer guy too.
Oh.
So he is soaking in everything that you do.
Yeah, like because what you're describing is actually like relatively technical movement. It's not just that it's in a big tractor, which would already be intimidating for most people. And he's how old at this point?
He was 6.
He's 6 years old. So his feet are hanging straight off of the chair, right?
Like so and the way this tractor works, it has a clutch and a brake pedal, but like in the field, you don't need them the way it operates. So, and like my dad would say, like, it was almost hard to teach me because the equipment was so much bigger. Well, the tractor Matthew's driving is a huge tractor and the planter's 60 foot wide, which would have been enormous when I was 10.
Right. It'd be enormous for a full grown adult.
Like half that size would have been pretty average at the time.
Right.
When I was that age. So anyway, I just clicked the GoPro on. I think the video is like 59 seconds or something like that. He just goes to the end of the field, clicks the hydraulics, planter goes up, makes his turn, clicks it down, and throttles it back up. He hadn't got up to keeping it going full throttle the whole time, but didn't think anything. I'm like, this is just another one of these videos I'm going to post. So that was a Friday night. I had over 5 years amassed 17,000 Facebook followers. I woke up Saturday morning and I had 42,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And how many people watched that video?
I could look it up. It had
in the millions, right?
Millions, yeah, several million.
So what was that experience like to go from being like, hey, I'm putting this stuff out here, a few people can see me, a lot of it my friends and family and people I don't know.
Yeah.
But then exploding and then having, your son is right there. That is immortalized forever.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
I mean, it was like, whoa, I really did something right. Your first thought is like, how do I do that again?
Right.
Which you can't intentionally post something viral.
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like, it's like a virus, right?
Yeah.
When the conditions are right for that specific thing, it's going to work. But there's billions and billions of viruses that never get a shot.
The pathogen and the host. And
that's right. That's right. The medium.
But no, it was crazy. And that was the first or maybe second time, like, I was like, okay, I don't read the comments because I can't keep up for the main thing. And I posted a longer version of it on YouTube, which wasn't. It's actually caught on more now. It's still not as big as the Facebook. I made it a little longer and showed him doing like farm kid stuff. But that video was really just, that's probably why it was viral. It was just like in the moment, no editing. Here's a kid driving a tractor.
And that was the first time that you'd had a viral experience?
Probably second time.
Second time.
Second time.
So why don't we go all the way back to Hawaii when you're putting up this blog? So we are eventually going to get to the point where you are having your combine being turned around, be viewed by millions of people, but you're in Hawaii. What are you imagining you're going to write there? You're going to write poetry? You're going to write
No. So I think, man, I think a lot of us start this way. Like, we're going to teach people what's going on. Like, we're going to get on the lectern and tell you how farming works. And
why is that a drive for you? The electrical guy doesn't feel like, hey, I'm going to get on Facebook and explain the electrical to you.
And I've had a lot of time to think about this. There's only 2% of us or whatever, but then I don't know how many percentage of people are electricians.
Right.
I don't know. So like,
but there is a difference.
It's a different job, because it's a different way of life, but I don't think we're probably not as special as we like to think we are. I don't know, but you'd have a different view on it. I've never been away from it.
I mean, I think that the interesting thing about the migration of farmers being down to 2% is a really big deal, because in the 1900s, it was 40%, 42%.
Yeah, it's changed rapidly.
Right. And so when you're talking about electricians, there was never a time when 42% of every electrician, his wife, and his children were going out intimately involved in farming.
You didn't subsistence.
Right. Most of which was by the hand. And if you talk about the history of human civilization, most people have been peasant farmers in the last 10,000 years.
Sure.
And we watched that expand in the U.S. because you had so many people move out west and then kind of conquer and start farming that. That took all labor, and then it changed so fast that we've never seen a larger migration of humans until China started draining their agrarian society into cities.
And there's a video that goes around every once in a while, probably from the really early 1900s. Whenever you can get a video, but it's a horse-drawn threshing machine.
Oh yeah,
cutting wheat on a hillside. And every time I see it, there's probably like 10 guys climbing all over that thing,
right?
Like losing fingers in the belts and whatever, and getting emphysema. But I'm like, man, those guys probably thought that was awesome. That looks horrible to me.
But a lot better than what they were doing before.
It with the scythe before that.
Right. Right. I'm like, I've been to, I will so when you're driving around in the countryside, you can be like, it can be a burden to you. You can be like, oh, I got to get from point A to point B. Or a lot of these little towns have things that make them, right? And there's some women's guild or some club that gets together and they put together tractor museums or old farming museums. Yeah. I go stop into those things all the time.
Really?
And in particular, there's one out near Manhattan, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got the ones where there were like tractors where you would throw coal into it to give the steam power enough to run the tracks.
Yeah.
And you think they must have thought this was the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And now if you tried to harvest that way, people would quit before an hour.
Oh, yeah. We have an old John Deere 45 combine. It's like a 1955, roughly. And we got it running, and we cut a couple acres of wheat with it.
So what does it have then? It has a PTO blade or like a spinning rod on the back?
So or what? It's funny because it's not a lot different than a current combine. It's just smaller. And like we used an extension cord to put a new wiring harness on it. It's got a lot less wires.
Oh, I bet.
Like it has like ignition and like a headlight. That's about it. But there's no cab on it. So I couldn't. I mean, my dad and my grandpa did that without cabs for a while, but I got no interest in harvesting with no cab.
Do you think if we went to downtown St. Louis tonight and we stopped people on the side of the street and we said, draw for me or describe for me what a farmer rides around in the tractor, would they still think that you're in an open air tractor?
Probably. That's what you see in all the children's books. Actually, I have a friend, we haven't done it yet. We've talked about it for like 3 years, about like writing a children's book that shows the modern farm without preaching that that's what it is.
Do you know who is publishing a children's book about farming? Well, you probably know several, but the one that I'm going to jump in, and
I know one person.
Matthew Sliger,
He
Rice
is
Farming TV.
that guy right there.
Right there. That guy. That's
That
right.
guy.
That's right. And you knew exactly where it was.
Yeah.
So that dude, he just had his second child and produces YouTube videos that are how to plant rice, and they're creative and they're clever. And he is publishing a children's book, and I could not be more excited.
Cool. He would be good at that.
He would, and he found an illustrator, and like I remember when he was driving on his tractor, and when Matthew is driving his tractor, his is not GPS guided, which we'll come back to.
And I've been to his farm.
Oh, you have?
I have. And what struck a lot of us from my part of the country that were in that group was there wasn't anything new in California.
Right. Oh, that's interesting, because you think of them as so forward leaning and so tech friendly.
Yeah. And I don't say that in a bad way.
It's just that the technology that you guys have in Indiana is the same as what they have out there.
Well, no, I'm saying like all the equipment was older, even on like the bigger farms and stuff, at least where we were.
Oh, that's interesting.
So like I keep a combine, like our last combine we ran for 4 years. That was a long time for us.
Really?
Yeah.
What does a combine cost?
The one we just bought is the first one and it was a year old. Actually, two. It's a 2017. It harvested 2017, sat on the dealer lot through 18. So its second actual harvest was with us this year. It was our first combine we bought that started with a 4 at the beginning. So in the 400,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And your bank is covering that, and you're just paying a note. Is it like financing a car?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I mean, and you don't have to talk about your specifics. You can say this is what people do.
No, there's different finance. Like the reason we buy 1-year-old machines is because John Deere Financial has better interest rate on new or used machines than they do on new ones.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, 0% is pretty good.
Yeah. So there's this goes to my point, and I said it last week with
banking and everything.
Well, I am afraid of inflation, and I think that a big place that inflation has gone is in farming and agriculture, because who knows how much land is worth. It's worth whatever people are willing to pay for it.
So at our previous house, we lived in a little neighborhood, which I'd never had like neighbors that you could like, their house was next to yours. That was weird. And then I missed it when we left. But anyway, so my neighbor, he used to be in the early 80s, like city council or chamber of commerce, something like that, involved in town. And he goes, I remember in 1983, he goes, John Deere had this thing. He goes, if you bought a $60,000 tractor, you got like a $3,500 Chevy pickup. He's like, what's that stuff cost now? I was like, well, first, the truck is $60,000. And that must have been 2013, because we just bought a tractor. I said, we just bought a brand new John Deere row crop tractor, and it was $304,000.
So this may be helping me figure out where is the inflation going, because the federal government just prints money all the time, right? But people say, but my prices aren't being inflated. My food still costs the same, or it's within. But I think that we have food costs that we are pushing the price down, and it's been able to keep up with inflation. But you talk about bigger ticket items, the person eating up that inflation are the people that are doing big business in farming, at least.
Yeah, and then maybe on the consumer end, we keep getting better at what we're doing on trend line yields.
Yeah,
generally go up. So we're probably reducing overall costs on the wholesale side.
Yeah, that's exactly. You're keeping up with inflation on that side.
You've got the whole, the JFK thing, where the farmer's the only one that buys everything retail and sells it for wholesale.
Do you think
which is pretty true?
Which is true, and it's just going to happen because it's a commodity, and anything that gets traded like that, just like if you were in mining, that's the way it would be. I
kind of get on people. You'll see farmers and stuff online getting upset that, or you always see some graphic about this is what farmers' share of a loaf of bread is. And I always kind of fight back about that. Like, well, so what? I care what it costs me to produce a bushel of wheat and what I sell it for. I didn't process it, bake it, package it, and haul it to the grocery store.
I just gave you the one component, wheat,
right?
That I was selling you into it.
If you want a bigger piece of that pie, you have to value add to it.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're just growing the commodity and sell it in bulk, don't complain. Do something
But
different.
that's like a really common thing you see on college campuses.
Yeah.
And it's when the ag school is like taking the position of like, oh, have pity on us. Look, we don't make enough money.
Yeah, I hate that.
And it doesn't bridge the divide that they think that it's bridging.
I did, and I think there's a pretty large crowd anymore that will fight back on that from the farm side now. When we see it, like everybody, not everybody, but farmers hate the thank a farmer thing.
Well, I think that's right. Farmers hate the thank a farmer thing. And I think that the other thing is that if you go this route, you end up handing some of your biggest critics the most ammunition.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because those are the same people that are like, that's why evil Monsanto shouldn't be there. And that's why we shouldn't have GMOs. And the monocropping is the problem.
Like my stance on that is if industry's doing thank a farmer, like if Bayer's doing it or a Pioneer, whoever, that's fine because they're,
that's their customer.
They're talking to their customer. They're pandering to the customer. It's when a farmer is like, the whole whatever, you can't eat 3 times a day without me or.
Well, and I think that's where the really delicate line of the tell your story thing got all confused.
Yeah, like that isn't untrue, but we talked about this a little bit on text. If I quit farming tonight, and my dad, but anyway, if we quit farming tonight, Scott Farms quits, all our land will be farmed this spring. Right.
There's no shortage.
We are not irreplaceable.
Right. I think that all got turned around when a collision of things happened at the same time, which was you still have seed companies trying to make good relationships with their farmers, so they do thank a farmer campaigns.
Yeah.
And at the same time, Monsanto realized we have people that are so afraid of us and so angry about what they think we're doing that they're going to literally tear down our factories. They're going to threaten our workers. They're going to stop us from doing. So we need to get farmers to go out and tell their story to say, because if you're from Monsanto and you go out and talk to a farmer, somebody's like, okay, you're from Monsanto. I know.
Yeah.
A guy from Pioneer, a guy from Bayer. This is just in the olden days of 6 months ago or 18 months ago before Bayer bought Monsanto. But then you started saying we need farmers to go out and tell their story, which is what you were doing.
Yeah.
But then they started mixing it into thank a farmer campaigns. So it became, let me tell you my story so that you can thank me, as opposed to a real hero's journey, like an actual, like, this is what's gone well. This is what didn't work. Yeah. This is where things are moving.
And I still don't think, I don't do it as often as I should. I try to post when I remember to. It's kind of hard because sometimes you get quite a bit of backlash from inside the community, but we need to post when we screw up because we don't hit a home run every time.
Well, that's a tough one, right? like what other industry shows their broken shoes and their and like nobody. So it's a tall order to say farmers should be doing that. Yeah.
But we need to show that we're fallible, I guess.
I think the fallibility
gives you more credibility.
That's right. I think that one of the things that I've learned is when farmers say, we used to do it this way and we thought that this was the best thing.
Yeah.
And then we realized, like, wait a second, we didn't realize these knock-on costs. So now we do it in this other way. Because if people say, why do you do it this way? What they really need to know in order to get on your team is what was the thing that led you to that decision. And usually it's we were in a suboptimal place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had, when I used to work in town right before I left, they hired a bigwig that had retired from Walmart. Like he had 150 stores under him. So he knew how to retail.
Right.
The one thing you didn't want to say to him when he said, why do we do this? If you said, because that's how we've always done it, he'd grab your ankles the rest of the day.
Oh, that's a good, that's actually a really good, way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
Right. You shouldn't do something just because you don't know
right.
I like that mantra.
Mm-hmm. No, I liked it too. So I learned not to give that answer.
So when you start this blog,
yeah.
And what happens when you first start putting stuff out into the world?
Nothing.
For how long?
Man, I don't know. On the blog, Facebook was slow. Like, I bet it took me a year to get to like 100 likes.
Oh.
And maybe like a couple more to get to 500.
Okay.
And then,
but you kept doing it.
Yeah.
Was it a lot of work?
It was a lot of work. I used to do, I called it Farm Week in Pictures. I did like 5 or 6 pictures every Friday of what happened during that week. But then as I built like a library of other posts, most like more issue-based posts, I started looking at the data on the backside of my blog. Those Farm Week in Pictures posts, they were being looked at like that day and the day after. So it was like the evergreen content kept going. So I was like, that's a relief because I don't have to do this. Like, I don't feel like I have to do this post every week now.
Oh, interesting. You could put it down because you said if I put more time into the other thing.
So I quit that 5 years ago, probably.
And so what is the evergreen content that you're posting now?
So, well, I really haven't posted anything on the blog in like 3 years just because I think that's a kind of a trend. Blogging isn't quite what it used to be.
Yeah, it's almost got to be an extremely special thing. Right.
This has exploded.
Right.
Of course. So podcast is the new blog, maybe. And it probably takes less work because we're just sitting here talking.
Well, this takes less work. I mean, I was telling you the As the Crow Flies.
Yeah.
Like, I would say it's a 3-to-1 time commitment to do an As the Crow Flies versus an interview because it's just so much more work. Because here people want the spontaneity. They want to know, what does he think? How are we responding?
Right.
With that one, I have to distill everything down into, this is the idea that I want to compress. And people, if they don't feel like they're getting it compressed fast enough, valuable information, they just click out.
So on my blog, if I couldn't knock out a rough draft in one session at the keyboard, I'd delete it and throw it away.
Okay.
Because I wasn't making any money or anything. So I was like, how much time do I want to... And there was one point where I was like really, trying to build it and trying to do this stuff. And like, I was like, I need to close the laptop and play with my kid before he goes to bed,
Right. Right. That I'll miss out on that time.
That's more important.
Right. And so how many years between when you're gaining steam to when you have the 2 big viral things that happened to you?
Yeah. So the video we talked about, that was 2016. So that was like 5 years in. So it was like a year in. So our mutual friend, Janice
Person.
Yep. Hi, Janice. She's listening.
I hope so.
And
Janice is old school G. We should talk about her. But
so she's... Of the first people that were doing this, she was in that group. But she was one of, if not the first person to find me online, which was a great stroke of luck. And I've told them both this. We were all eating at South by Southwest together one time. Janice, and if you know a lady named Peg Fitzpatrick, she's a pretty big deal in social media world and also in dry cleaning, which is a weird thing. They have a new corn product where she got some pictures from me they use in their advertising.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, but she's like really a big deal, goes to all the big blogging conferences and all this stuff. And Guy Kawasaki?
Yeah, sure.
Like, she was side by side with him, like touring the planet promoting Google Plus.
Oh, wow.
Back in the day.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like Janice and Peg were like the first people that found me, which was extremely helpful. And Peg and her business partner used to run a website called 12 Most. So she asked if I wanted to contribute. So it was, every post was a list of 12 things. So it'd be like the 12 most St. Louis things to do in St. Louis, something like that. So that helped me build my following outside of agriculture, because that's who was reading that blog. I did several of them, but one I did, it was like the 12 most game-changing ag technologies or something at the time. And it went up on 12 most the same day as, I think I have this right. Most people blogging probably heard of Chris Brogan. He's like a big time blogger. He had a 12 most post the same day, and mine got more hits.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was kind of crazy.
And so as you're starting to do this, you're a bit of an anomaly because there are very few other farmers at all.
There wasn't a lot.
Yeah. And so what are you talking about on your social media that's making people
So I was
interested?
trying to figure it out, and like originally, I didn't even have pictures on my Facebook post probably when I started. And
I mean, nobody did. It used to take so long to upload them.
Oh yeah. And then I know I didn't have pictures on my blog for a while. And now I know, like, you have to have a featured picture with text on it so you can put it on Pinterest and people are like,
right.
It's like, if I go back and think of all the stuff I learned, it's kind of crazy. All the stuff I kind of know somewhat now. But anyway, so when I started, I think this has kind of died down some. We can talk about that maybe. But GMOs was the big thing back then.
People were scared of them.
Yeah. Bigger than it is now, I would say.
Yeah, I think that fight is over.
I kind of think it's like...
Yeah, I think that you've got the residual and you've got the policy stuff that's all going to get worked out.
You rarely find me talking about it anymore, because I think that... I think I've said like everything I'm going to say about it. And so, but anyway, it was pretty hotly debated. This was 7-8 years ago.
Like if you told people that when you say they're hotly debated... What were they upset? What were you answering that would
the main thing? Now I can timestamp this now. The main thing was what are farmers beholden to when they use GMO crops. So it actually came back to the Occupy movement, if you remember all that.
No kidding.
So Willie Nelson wrote a post about Occupy on Farm Aid, about how Monsantos or slaves or whatever, farmers or slaves are all corporations and whatnot and all that stuff. So originally this post was centered on, like, there's a whole introduction about the Occupy movement, and it was called I Occupy. I think maybe his post was I Occupy the Food Supply or something like that, and I played on that. And I asked Janice, I was like, I know there's no like guys in black suits and black helicopters, but if I scan a PDF of my technology use agreement and put it on my blog, will that be okay? Which I guess we said Janice was working at Monsanto.
Yeah.
So she asked some people, and she's like, yeah, that'd be fine. I think it took her like a couple minutes. She's like, yeah, that'd be fine.
Well, because she knows everybody.
Yeah. So I got this idea, and everybody's arguing about what farmers can and can't do when they plant Roundup Ready beans or Smart Stacks corn, whatever. So it's like, well, what if I just take the actual agreement? Because I can't find it anywhere.
What does the agreement say? Tell me what was on there that was surprising to people.
Yeah, we'll go through that. So, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on it. So I scanned it, put it on my blog so anybody can look at a PDF of an actual Monsanto tech use agreement. And then my blog is line item through each section of the contract, what I think of it as a farmer. So it's like, you can read this. This is my opinion of it. Or if you really could give a crap about what I have to say because I'm a shill or whatever, here's like the actual stinking thing. You read it and draw your own conclusions. And that became like, somebody actually called it one time, it was like the definitive post on the topic. I
think so too. And I agree with that.
It was the number one post on my blog for like 5 years after I wrote it.
And how many people do you think read it?
Quite a few. I mean, people are still sharing it.
Really?
Yeah. Not as much as used to be.
Like in the millions, you think?
No, like my whole blog just passed like 1 million views a while ago. So,
it's hard for me to have a gauge on this because some of your videos have gone like huge in the millions.
So a year later, I think it was just right at a year later. You know Ryan Goodman.
Yeah, sure.
Beef runner.
Beef runner.
Yeah. So
I just wrote him the other day and was like, dude, next time you're in St. Louis, come stop by. I want to talk about you.
Run down here from Montana or whatever. Ultra run. But so Ryan was writing a contributor at CNN's Etocracy blog. Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember this type of stuff. Yeah.
So he threw my name out to Kat Kinsman, who was the editor at Etocracy at the time, and she's gone on to do a couple other things. I got to meet her in New York one time. That was pretty cool.
This was as there was a big movement growing in the media to be like, we want to be a part of the food conversation.
Yep. So that was her thing. CNN had like a food just blog, basically, that had outside people like me and Ryan contributing. So I think maybe I'd written 1 or 2 posts, and like it was really cool. I was getting all this on CNN writing stuff. So then I approached Kat. I was like, hey, go look at this thing I did about the tech use agreement. Can we just copy and paste that on CNN and see what happens? And she said, yeah. I think I reworded it because it's been rewritten on my blog, the first couple paragraphs, and like a link from the old one redirects because the Occupy thing is dated.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of people wouldn't understand it.
I changed the first paragraph or two to make it like a timeless thing. So took the whole Willie Nelson Occupy thing out of it. But anyway, so I changed it a little bit, but it's essentially, 99% the same. And Kat and I put it up on CNN, and ironic, Dow had put a group of 10 or 12 farmers together, and we were going to DC to basically I say lobby, but we weren't paid. We were treated nicely, but we definitely weren't paid to push enlist through like 2,4-D tolerant soybeans.
So this is a chemistry where you were advocating for the GMO, or you were advocating for the pesticide, or for both?
Both.
Okay, so for anybody that doesn't know, you can make a crop able to resist a certain type of herbicide.
Right.
This herbicide 2,4-D has been around for a long time, but it's not been where the beans were made so that they could resist them, which means you can go over top, spray the beans and the weeds die, the beans live.
Right. Like if you sprayed non-enlist beans with 2,4-D, you just smoke them.
Right.
So anyway, we're in DC for that, and we're on our bus that's shuttling us around to like the Capitol building and the federal building and EPA and USDA, all this stuff. And that is the day the thing went live on CNN.
Oh, so you get to be the man.
We all are reading it on our phones, and like you can't keep up with the comments. And I text Kat, and I was like, so how's the post going? I think she said it had like 80,000 views or something.
Oh, man.
She's like, I never seen anything quite like it. It got like 800 comments the first day.
Oh, man.
And they were pretty entertaining, and very few of them were pro me.
Yeah, isn't that weird? So I one time wrote a post that went on MSNBC or CNBC, and it was about how Warren Buffett was wrong on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And like I had seen things get a little bit of a pop on social media. This is before I went to work at Monsanto, but never before in my life had I seen something shared and this was then syndicated and posted in like Yahoo Finance. And you go read comments that people are writing of people that don't know you. Yeah. And you're like, what in the hell is wrong with this person? Like,
oh, man.
How could you have enough emotion about this subject and then throw it at me?
The two I remember were, one was somebody went to my blog, and I looked at one of those Farm Week and Pictures posts. Like, go to this guy's blog and look at his truck. Like, he's not making that much money farming, which I thought it was hilarious. Like one side, like now I do have a pretty nice truck, and I'm not going to like apologize for doing well. Yeah. As long as I didn't come by it by ill means. But that was only a couple of years after I came back to the farm. And so this was probably 2013, 2014. When I came back to the farm, I didn't have a truck for like a year. I bought this truck. It's a 2004 Chevy with 220,000 miles on it. And I bought for $10,000. And like 4 years later, this guy's like, "Look at this guy.
He's barely
fancy
making
truck.
It's fancy truck."
he couldn't afford that truck farming. And I was like, man, this is like the biggest piece of crap I've ever bought, you know? But
I mean, so that's actually a good thing for us to talk about. I think that, I've been thinking a lot about the perception of the city versus the country, which I know you have for years.
Yeah.
But something dawned on me the other day that I really didn't understand. And I want to explore it further because I don't think my initial perception is right, but I want to talk more about it, which is, have you seen that CGP Grey link where he talks about the sneaky plan to subvert the Electoral College?
No.
So it's gotten, I don't know, maybe 3 million views, maybe not even that much, but it's basically, you know who CGP Grey is, right? He's the YouTube guy. He makes these like stick figure drawings of different complicated ideas.
Like Schoolhouse Rocks.
A little bit like that, yeah. And his is like clever. It's got similar music and he's got like a punchy thing. He's got millions and millions of followers. He put up one about the sneaky plan to subvert the Electoral College, and it's about creating states that essentially join a treaty that say, when we get enough states together that hold Electoral College votes, then we will automatically trigger, and instead of necessarily voting the way that our state voted, we're going to vote the way that the popular vote around the country voted. Because what we want to do is invert that where we're saying one person, one vote, and the Electoral College system is representing an antiquated system with landowners.
Yeah.
And I think that this is an important concept because it goes to a problem that people could not have foreseen when in the 1900s, 40% of the population lives and works on farms, and now it's less than 2%.
Yeah.
In that the people living in the city don't own property in the same way that farmers do.
Right.
And if they don't own property, the way that they will view how it should be treated, who is in control of it, who's responsible for it, what sort of test do you have to get through, what are you allowed to do on it, that balance of power completely shifts to being in the cities and in particular being on the coasts.
Right.
And the power is sucked out of the most valuable asset in the U.S., which is our land, our ability to grow crops.
And you come from rural Illinois.
Right.
That's probably always the best example. Like, you always see the map, and like every county but Cook and the collar counties is red.
That's right. And so then they have a government
the rest of the counties,
that the governors go to prison.
Doesn't matter.
Illinois is a great example of that because it's a red state.
Ohio's a little bit like that.
Yeah,
too.
and I don't want to get into politics. My politics are not important, but it's a great example of saying you have an entire state of which a really small portion of it, living right by the Great Lakes, dominates how so much is done in the state. Right. And we're giving up more and more of like local control of your school board and these various things because
there's like a disconnect. Like, there's way more people, but like my buddy Josh in Chicago doesn't own and farm 2,500 acres of the country like I do.
Right.
So
I didn't realize until I started working at Monsanto, like I really had no scope of how important and huge the agriculture industry is on the United States. Like the advantage that we have by having the Mississippi River is almost unspeakable that how amazing it is that we have it, because even if we could grow all this, you could grow a lot in Russia, you can grow a lot in Africa, but you can't transport it like we can in the U.S. because of the Mississippi.
I have a couple things on that. So when Dow had that group together, they were sending guys to D.C., they had some ag reporters. They worked for newspapers, but they were ag reporters from Brazil. They come like once a year, something like that. So they were coming through Chicago, and they said, can their first stop be your farm? And Kenda, she's great, one of the ladies from Dow, came up. And so they came out to the farm and, did the whole just standard interview stuff. And then they had some time, so we went out to lunch. And I always remember I was talking to one of them. I said, we worry about you guys down there because you get to do everything we do, you get to do it twice because they get 2 growing seasons a year. And I'd never heard...
Down in Brazil, you're saying?
Yeah. I'd never heard the other side's perspective on that. He said, we worry about you guys because you're really damn good at it.
Oh.
And I'd never heard it like that before.
That's a nice thing to hear.
So go back. He's been out with a group twice to our farm now. There's a guy in Uruguay, Gabriel. Maybe you've come across him on Facebook. He brings up a group of farmers. This year, everybody was from Uruguay. Last year, there was some Argentina and stuff like that. But anyway, it's just Dad and I the first time. This time I thought, well, I'm going to invite some of the neighbors over. Be better conversation and whatnot, more interesting. So we kind of got to talking more, and we got to talking about trucking. And yeah, Gabriel gets to grow 2 crops a year, but he has no trucks. Like, we have 3 semis. He has no trucks. And like, I can probably go 20 places within 20 miles of my farm to deliver my crops.
Oh, so this is important. If you're not in farming, you don't just get to grow your crops and then you're done. You actually have to put them in a grain truck and take them. Either you store them yourself, right? Somebody else stores them, or you sell them right away. But you got to do one of those 3 things.
So I have probably 20 places I can go pretty easily, and we store about 175 truckloads of grain on the farm.
Wow!
So when people ask what we do in the off season, like, I'm trucking a lot of it. But anyway, so we're asking Gabriel about getting crop to market in Uruguay. And he said it takes, he hires custom trucking. It takes the guy an entire day to go from the farm to the elevator or wherever, or the barge. I think they might be taking it to port or something like that. But it takes an entire day for one truck, and he pays about $1,200 for it.
Whoa.
Which is, I don't know what size the truck was. They might be pulling a couple of trailers, maybe. I don't know. But so like
the time thing is the thing.
At today's prices,
a
truckload of corn for me is $4,000. So you ain't taking $1,200 of that from me.
Right. Right. I'm not giving you a quarter just to transport it.
No kidding. And that's $4,000 gross. So you got to take my costs out of that too.
Last week I had Jason Mauk on, and he was talking about trying to do some interesting innovation in agriculture in Africa. Yeah. And I think there's no doubt one day Africa will be farmed. It'd be very, very surprising to me. But they're a long way off of that.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is so profound that we built in the United States that it's hard to imagine how it will happen again in Africa. But it is, we have the huge advantage of the Mississippi River because there's so much work that gets done by flowing water to move the grain from one place to another that we could spend money in other parts of it.
I'm just in Indiana, and I'm jealous of the guys that can go straight to the river. Because like farms that can take grain straight to the barges, they can also backhaul bulk dry fertilizer.
So say more about that.
Well, it's way cheaper.
Okay.
Because they're picking it up right off the barge.
And they don't have a middleman to
I can't
charge.
do that.
So you've got to pay a middleman to sell you some fertilizer.
But then, like, if you go back to Brazil, I've read, like, in the interior, it takes a truck 30 days to go from farm to market.
Oh, man.
On dirt roads on the side of a cliff or whatever. And I'm like, well, I can haul... If I eat lunch in the truck, I could take 4 or 5 loads of down by myself in a day. That's a huge difference.
It is interesting. My picture of you is it's funny because when you showed up, you're in bright, shiny, clean clothes because normally I see you in like a thick, I don't know, like canvas Carhartt jacket in a truck because you're hauling grain most of the winter. It's gray and dark out, and you're doing video.
I was talking to somebody about this the other day because I did the math once, and I think I included Sundays, and then you got to take out all the other things I'm doing that aren't trucking. Roughly average start and end dates between the end of harvest and the beginning of the next harvest with our on-farm storage. I gotta average 1.5, 2 trucks a day off the farm. So when people wonder what we're doing, let alone doing, end of the year taxes and financial statements for the bank and other business stuff and, planting and fertilizing and taking care of weeds. I'm like, we basically have a small trucking company of 3 trucks where Dad and I are also the drivers.
If you've never run your own business, you don't have any idea like the amount of paperwork you have to do just to keep your head above water.
Yeah.
But then you're talking about a business like farming where you've got to buy from different vendors all sorts of things, whether it's, chemicals to keep insects off or weeds. You've got to put fertilizer out. Some of those you can apply yourself. Some of them you've got to pay somebody else to put them on.
Right.
You got to buy seeds. You got to do all these things, and you've got to make all the accounting work out. And if you don't, you do something wrong. You're not paying attention to how many seeds you received, counting everything. You could get behind in a hurry. You could start working in a situation where you're making less than you're.
I need to, we're not bad at it, but like our accounting could probably be like more professional, if you want to say it that way. But, it is the boring part.
Yeah, I mean,
driving tractors is fun, but that's like, it's like
what percentage of your life
actual field work?
Yeah.
It's like a lot less time than I'd like to think it is.
And the rest of it is what it takes to run a farm business, right? In order to maintain trucks and paying for things.
2019 was the year of the truck.
Didn't you light a combine on fire?
A little bit.
What happened?
So we got that new combine this year. Not brand new. I think it had 341 engine hours on it when we bought it. Harvested the first 125 acre field of beans. So a couple days worth of work, and got 20 acres into the next field. And so I'm in the cab, and we had this happen in 2018. 'Cause there was a lot of down corn, a lot of dirt causing problems. So I'm driving along, and I get a 0 speed warning on my tailings elevator, which we don't have to explain what that is. But I'm like, oh my God, we snapped that auger in 2 again, just like we did last year on the other combine. I'm like, crap. So I stopped.
Is that's going to be expensive, or it's going to take a long time? It's
just annoying.
Okay.
And actually nobody had that auger. We had to drive halfway across the state to get it. But anyway, so I'm like, oh crap. Okay, I'll stop, let the machine clean out. Maybe it's just plugged and like the slip clutch was engaging or something. Start it up again. Everything's going okay. I go, I don't know, another 50 yards or something. And then I'm like, 0 tailing speed. I'm like, oh, come on. We're just starting here. This is new machine to us. It's really low hours. Doesn't need anything. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm like, I can't even look at my screen anymore because it won't stop giving me warnings. It's because my main wiring harness was on fire.
Oh, man.
So all the wires were getting cut in 2. And it was like inside. So like I didn't look in the mirror and like, holy crap, I'm on fire. I'm just like, I'm just driving. And
how big were the flames?
Not big, like
size of a candle,
a couple basketballs.
That's pretty big.
But
if it's a $400,000 combine,
search tractor fire on YouTube. It wasn't very big. And I tell people, I said, the one thing I was disappointed in is the first thing I did was I got out the extinguisher and put the flames out before I took any video of it.
That's exactly what I told you. Remember? I mean, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, did you get video of your burning combine? But
and then you have the thought of, well, just burn to the ground. Like, because what kind of problems are we going to have? Like, and there was hydraulic fluid leaking because a couple of the hoses had started kind of weeping. They didn't really burst, but they'd got enough heat on them. And I'm like, come on.
So what's the return?
Light up.
What's the return policy on a tractor like that?
Well, you've got insurance to cover repairs. Some of it. So like, it's just like your car. We have a deductible. It's like that. So once we got the fire out, the fire department came out and got it. Our neighbor was the first one there because he's a volunteer fire department. He's telling the city fire department where to go and all this stuff. So they basically flooded the inside of the combine with foam. I had to get in there and disconnect the batteries because the wiring harness. So it's like the wiring harness is it's probably like 2 inches around. It's full of skinny little wires. So all the insulation's melting off. They're all touching each other.
Oh man,
so
everything.
It just kept relighting itself. So what it ended up being once everything got put out was there's a bearing right behind that. The bearing went bad. So the bearing got hot, and where that wiring harness is, it makes kind of a 90-degree turn. It collects a lot of dust. So that could have easily, like one spark could have lit that up.
And you're dealing with that level of risk all the time, huh?
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I mean, just so on your way in, Jason Malk was on his way out because you guys are both here for a no-till conference. Right. And you guys both said there's been a lot of deaths with grain elevators in the last few weeks.
Yeah, there was one, a guy died 2 counties over from us yesterday or the day before.
How does that happen in a modern age?
They are almost always, and I won't say I've been 1,000% safe every time I've been in a grain bin. So cut this part out so my wife doesn't hear it. She doesn't like those. She knows farming is dangerous. So it's usually like number 2 behind firefighter or something like that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's up there. So I didn't read on that one. I usually don't like to read them. I don't want to know a lot of time, but usually a grain bin accident, almost every single one of them is totally preventable, which is the worst part about it.
But explain for people that don't. So when you're driving out in the countryside, you see these towers, the cylinders.
Yep.
They are filled with either corn or soy, or they could be other things. But in the Midwest, that's what it is.
What happens a lot of times, and there's probably going to be more of it this year because of very late planting, a very late harvest, a very wet crop. It couldn't dry naturally in the field, before. You can't let it sit out there all winter. Got to take it off sometime. So we've actually already had 2 bins with problems, and it's only January 7th. And we finished harvest in the middle of November, getting hot or getting too wet. So you've got all that grain in the bin, and a lot of times what happens, this isn't our problem, but so the stuff on top will kind of glue together as it goes out of condition. And it can form a crust. When you take a truckload out, there'll be a cavity under that crust. Now, if you decide to go in the top of that grain bin and check it out and don't realize that's a crust, it won't hold you up. And you go...
Oh, my God.
You go down.
So it'd be like falling off a giant skyscraper.
Yeah, depending on how far it is. And then the other thing
is... not a giant skyscraper. It'd be like... Yeah.
You don't go in a bin when it's being unloaded. I don't have all the details, so don't quote me, but it's like it's stronger than water. You cannot pull yourself. Like if you had a harness up to the roof, that you couldn't pull yourself up with the rope. There's no way.
What do you mean? I'm
it's like imagine being in like mud or quicksand. It's the same.
Oh, if you fall into the elevator, even if the auger's off.
Sometimes even when the auger's off. Because we have to go in there for some things. Like, if you get like up to your knee, you're like, for a second, you're like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah, I did one of those experiment things where they have like this big thing and you sink in.
Yeah.
And at first you're like, oh, isn't this funny? I can pull my feet out. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, no, maybe I can't.
Yep.
And then you start going deeper and deeper the more you struggle.
And then, like, we have to get in most of our bins to clean them out. When we run out of gravity flow, we have an auger, a sweep auger that goes around the bottom. So we kind of have to push it and clean up behind it, you stay on the back side of the auger behind the shield. You don't get in front of it. But sometimes you hear about kids getting killed in grain bins. And I'm like...
Yeah, I heard one a couple weeks ago.
And I'm just like, everybody's different. I don't know everybody's kid and how they are experiencing everything. But I'm like, I don't know. If you're under like 12 or 14, like I don't care how responsible, but you shouldn't be in there.
It's such a hard
worth it
thing. So, not a parent, but I can see that you want to protect your kids.
Yep.
But, 2 years ago today, I was with Jordan Peterson at the American Farm Bureau, and he talked about making sure your kids are ready to go to college. And how do you protect them? You protect them by teaching them how to be responsible around dangerous equipment.
Yeah.
And kids have been around dangerous equipment for a long, long, long time.
Yeah. And kind of my saying on the farm is like when the boys are riding with me or whatever, like you can relate to this, like this tractor or combine, whatever, like this is the ship. I'm the captain. My word is the law. Like you do what I say.
Yeah. Yeah, you probably have to be that way, right?
Yeah,
like because they don't. If they're ambitious, they're getting excited about things, but they've got to listen to you right away.
It's great when my wife and both boys come out and like bring dinner in the combine. But a few years ago, I read a story. It was a daughter or granddaughter, just a freak accident. The windshield shattered. She fell out and into the head, and that was the end of it.
Oh my God!
So like, I get pretty snippy if the boys get close to the windshield.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So talk about. There's not very many businesses. I mean, there are a lot of family businesses. I don't want to say that. In cities, you go to laundromats, you go to restaurants, but it's different in farming because people are owning an asset together. There's what is it that goes on in a family farming operation that somebody that doesn't own property and doesn't farm wouldn't know? I'm
not going to be good at this.
Okay.
Because we're like we're really boring. Like there's no. I said actually, I got a call from some TV producer one time. They were wanting to do kind of like a Gordon Ramsay type farm thing. Like, and I couldn't do it. Like, I just couldn't. And like, I wouldn't want that out there in the world.
Yeah,
like,
right.
We don't need a show where some farmer goes and screams at other farmers. Like, let's paint it in a good light, but like I told somebody one time,
the West Coast choppers for farming.
Like,
I guarantee it exists now. It's got to be out there
Dad
somewhere.
and I are not in that meme of the West Coast choppers guys. But I told somebody one time, I was like, you would have to have a TV crew at Scott Farms for like 10 years to get a couple things to put on TV, probably.
So you two have an interesting...
We're a bad example.
Is it because you guys don't fight? No, is it because of the way that you fight is so much more constructive? You must disagree about things.
I can't think of a time Dad and I fought.
What about disagreed?
Maybe. We always just compromise on it. I mean, I don't think we've ever truly butted heads over anything.
That's extraordinary. That's not the norm.
I understand that that's weird.
Do you think it's because you both have a temperament of being highly agreeable?
No,
or what is it?
My grandpa wasn't like that.
Oh.
And we had a hired hand for 20 years that was a little hot-headed too. So they butted heads. That's for sure. And then there was one, because Grandpa, he would get on you. And there was one time, I don't know, it'd be something weird. Dad was backing a truck out of the tool shed, and like he turned it a little bit because he wasn't gonna. I don't know. He's gonna bend it around the bin or something instead of backing out straight. Grandpa was screaming and yelling at him, and I think he'd been building up through the week, and hired hand was there, and I was walking across the way. I just kept walking, and Dad got out of the truck and let some words fly and punched the tool shed, and that's probably the most exciting thing that's ever happened at Scott Farms.
Come to think,
and I was like, I'm just gonna keep walking. And Randy came over and talked to me later. He's like, I saw you just kept walking on by. I was like, Grandpa had it coming.
That's a good family story, man.
Yeah, we actually had. That reminds me, we had my 20th class reunion last summer, and one guy and a couple people came up to me and talked about my dad, because we had people that were in school with me that would come out and walk beans before Roundup came out. So some of my friends and stuff would come out. But this one guy, he wasn't a bad guy, but he was like a troublemaker in school. And he, like I said, my dad's just like me, or other way around or whatever. He came up to me at the class reunion and said, we were walking beans one day. He goes, and I was over by the side ditch, like...
That walking beans is when you walk up and down the rows and you're pulling and weeds out of there. You got a hoe or a hook.
Cut weeds in July.
Yeah.
And people that don't like herbicides, I've told them we still have the weed hooks. Come out in July and August. We'll walk some beans.
That's right.
Nobody showed up.
Nobody
yet.
would put their 14-year-old out there anymore.
Oh, no.
I did it for years.
Dad says he doesn't remember, but I know he paid me $1 an hour less than everybody else.
Oh.
He says he doesn't remember that, but I know he did.
Oh, that would burn because you're just out there in the sun just like everybody else is.
Yeah, it's terrible. But
it was pretty fun for a kid like me from town because you get to go out and break things.
Where were we going with that?
You were telling about the fights and then the...
Oh, yeah. So this guy comes up to me at the class reunion. He goes, we were supposed to be doing this. And I was over on the side of the field doing this, screwing around, throwing rocks in the water or whatever. He goes, and your dad came up and yelled at me. He says, I knew if John Scott yelled at me, I really screwed up. And then he said, this was like pretty kind of deep. He was like, and I needed that day. Because he was always kind of getting in trouble doing stuff all the time.
Do you think there's something lost in society when we've completely removed the ability for adults that are around in a situation not to correct kids? I mean, I would never correct a kid. If they were doing something way off, I would just leave whatever the situation is. But unless I know the parent really closely, I would never touch that.
Yeah. That does seem like you'd end up in court today or something like that.
I mean, I think you're really taking a gamble on how are the parents going to interpret it and to what level do they feel grizzly bear protective of their kids?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. See, it's one of those things I often say I have a hard time knowing what people from town or even people in the country that don't farm think, because except for a really short span, I never didn't do it or wasn't around.
What was the short span? College?
So after college,
Where'd you go to college?
Purdue.
What did you study?
I started in farm management. I did that for 2 years. And then that's kind of a funny story. I went to my first week of classes my junior year and realized, looking at going forward, the next 4 semesters were all I was doing was financial statements and balance sheets.
Welcome to farming.
Yeah.
Welcome to farm management.
Of course, now I'm like, I should have stayed, because now I have to do that stuff.
Right.
But no, I was like, this just isn't like, I like science and plants. So I switched over to agronomy, and it was funny because I went to the whole first week of classes and like, I can't do this. I had to switch academic advisors and everything, which the Purdue Ag program is really cool.
Oh, and it's an amazing program.
At least when I was there, it was of all the schools on campus, the professors, the ag professors are the academic advisors. It's not like somebody that's their job is to schedule people for classes. So you go to your professors. And
then they're going to be really aware of what the other teachers are doing. And
they also had a thing. I never knew how they did this. Every ag class you had the first day of the semester, at the end of class, after they just go through the syllabus the first day or whatever, you wrote your name on a sheet of paper and you stood in front of the chalkboard and they took a Polaroid picture of you. And the next day and forever after that, every professor in the School of Agriculture knew your first and last name and your hometown.
Wow.
So whatever device they were using, I mean, every professor in the school is like that.
That would have a profound impact on the way you learned.
Yeah.
Right? If you went from being a number to being a person. I
had Dr. Lee Schweitzer. I had several classes with him, and I'd never spoke in class or anything. And I had probably 2 or 3 classes with him. I was walking through the middle of the campus one day. We passed on the sidewalk, and he goes, "Hey, Brian, how are things going in Delphi?" I'd never talked to the guy before.
And clearly impressive. it left a mark on you, right?
So anyway, I switched majors, and it takes them 2 weeks to place me in classes. So for the second and third week of my junior year, I didn't go to class because I didn't have a class to go to. So I didn't do anything. So luckily, every class I had taken counted for something on my new major, and I didn't lose anything. I did have to take some extra humanities credits because I was in the jazz band for a few semesters at Purdue, but since Purdue doesn't have a music school, being in jazz band doesn't count as humanities credit, which is dumb. But anyway, so I had to take like sociology and like art appreciation or something like that.
What did you feel like you learned in college that you use now?
So I have thoughts about that, but I got to finish this other story.
Oh,
so the fourth week of class, I'm placed in all my classes. I'm in soil and crop management now. I'm in the agronomy school. So most classes at Purdue, you have 3 exams in a semester. But this Botany 210 class was one of the rare ones with 4 exams. So the second day of class, I had an exam. My second day of class, I had an exam, like a month into school. So the professor, there's a class of like 20 people. So he's like, just try to get somebody's notes and do the best you can. So I did that. We take the test, come back my third day of class. I'm sitting dead center in the middle of the room. He's got all the exams. He's like, I'm really disappointed. He's like, the average for the class was a 67.
Ooh.
Except for Brian, he got a 97.
Whoa.
I felt like such a jerk because like showed up the day before. I'm sitting in the middle of everybody. And then everybody wanted to borrow my notes for the rest of the semester.
Did you just cram like your mind off?
That gets to what sometimes I think what I learned in college, I kind of joke, and other people have agreed with me on this. I say sometimes looking back, my 4 years of college was just 4 years of a graph of where the point of diminishing returns is at. Like that was like in every class, which is what you do in farming.
You learn just enough
like, how much fertilizer do I put on before I don't get more corn and I'm just losing money.
That's a great point.
So like sometimes I sound like that was my whole 4 years was that one graph. But I also go back and
what was your GPA you were shooting for? Was it that you needed to get all A's?
Oh, I wasn't shooting. I think I graduated at like a 3.2.
Okay.
Something like that.
So you were like, I'm going to get A's, mostly A's and a couple B's.
Because I always really enjoyed school. I was, not that at our high school, I think I had 180 people in graduating class. I know because they took a picture. It's still up in the hallway. I was in the top 10 in my class. And I always thought it was kind of funny because I wasn't doing any ag stuff in high school. I was in jazz band in high school. And when I was a senior, I took music theory. So 1, I couldn't take ag classes. 2, I think all the other people in the top 10, they got to take some other AP classes I didn't have time for, where we had a 12-point instead of a 4-point grade scale.
Uh-huh.
So you could...
That's weird.
If you got an A+, you could get like a 13 GPA in an AP, advanced placement class.
Okay.
So like a lot of them took Latin and physics, but since I was doing like jazz band and music theory and also a concert band, I didn't take those AP classes. So I was like, oh man, I wonder if I could have been number 1. I wouldn't have wanted to give the speech, but
what do you think is what you learned in college?
So what
How much
I think
are you
I
applying?
learned, I mean, I use it. I have all my binders in the office at the farm.
When was the last time you pulled one out?
I pull them out every once in a while. Like my favorite class was, it was actually kind of a graduate level class senior year. You took like agronomy 525, plant pathology. And
most
I love
people
that
don't
class.
know what agronomy is.
Yeah, so like agronomy is just, I always thought that was weird. I was in soil and crop management, and agronomy was also a degree, and I never knew how they were different.
I don't know either.
I don't know. They're basically the same. But so agronomy is just like the science of farming.
Science / economics, right? There's like a business aspect to it.
Yeah, and I always say farming is just like, it's just applied science.
It's engineering, right? It's biological engineering.
Yeah.
Only you're not on the part of engineering the genetics. You're on the how do we put these little solar radiation factories out and orient them to the sun so that they can produce more fuel.
Like, probably several months ago, I pulled out my agronomy 525 binder and I'm flipping through it. I'm like, when I was doing this every day, like I was a genius. Like I could do half the stuff in that now because I just don't apply it at that deep of a level every day.
It's like mixes of different herbicides, or
no? I mean, this was like going through plants at the cellular level.
Okay, and you don't have to know
all the pathways.
It's good to know a general overview,
right? like,
so you don't get hosed by the
I'm
salesman.
sure like deep in my brain that stuff is valuable, but I can't just regurgitate it all for you, right? You know, God, almost 20 years later.
So,
but what I think I learned, one thing I always think I learned in college is I learned how to make the system work. So my roommate was a high school friend a year behind me, and he was a engineer, which in Purdue, big time engineering, big time ag school. And they have like crazy, stupid homework in engineering.
Oh, yeah.
And we had hardly any in ag. We did it all in class. And so he was always just like slaving away, and like they had study groups to get for exams. Like there's, and like I just learned what worked for me. And I think I learned this kind of what my dad did too. And it made Mike so mad because I'd like aced the test or whatever. How do you do that? I'm like, because I didn't go to any study groups or anything or work with other people. I learned what worked for me was I took really good notes every day during class, and on exam day, I'd read them like 5 times an hour before the test.
And it was enough for you.
Yep. And then I'd go in. And then as I moved on, it got worse or better when I changed majors. So as a junior, I had to go back and take some 100 level classes that just to meet the requirement. But I'd had several classes like above that. So like I knew the material.
So would you say that farming is something that you have to have a deep education? I mean, it sounds like, because I want the engineers to be studying their asses off. I want them to be sweating
to fall down when
that's
you're driving
right.
across.
That's exactly right. But the farmer, like if you don't study and do well, and you don't do well, like you just get picked off in the real world.
Yeah, but it's like this is like a YouTube video I've been trying to hash out. Like I might talk to some other people, but like, do farmers need to go to college? Like if I did all over again, I would go again. But it's like, I don't know that it's not a requirement. And of course you don't need a license or anything, but
I think
it depends on the person. Like if I did it all over again, I'd probably go to college again. But a lot of times am in the shop and wish I'd went to trade school.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Because I don't have any of that kind of training.
Be good to have some welding and
and you know Brent Moan up in Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
He is an unreal fabricator. I mean, I wish I had a tenth of his skills. He farms and then he has a fabricating business on the side. If you look at some of the stuff he's making is crazy.
Well, I'll put that up there. I'll put it up here.
Yeah.
Heather Haymart, the artist, she actually painted that and gave it to me.
That's her?
At the podcast party.
Yeah, that's cool.
And she said that, with art, you can learn a lot about art, but they should have made it 50-50 with art and business. Because
I remember her saying that.
Yeah, you can't be an artist as a professional unless you are way off the charts, an extreme anomaly. What you really need to know is what are gallery fees and what are my costs?
And I mean, I would notice some things like Dad and I both went to college. Excuse me. Grandpa didn't go to college. So like occasionally I'd notice like he knew that we did something, but he didn't have a deep understanding of like why it was. Because Dad and I had that science education that he didn't. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I come back to this thing with farming, like a lot of times whether I do well or not is like, did it rain or not one day the first week of August when it was hot outside?
Really?
Yeah.
Does that,
despite all my plans?
And how do you feel about having your luck run on, whether the clouds open up?
It's fine. People have asked me about that since I quit my town job, which is coming up on 11 years ago. But
what were you doing in town?
I was working in retail. I was a retail management.
At like a store?
Yeah, Rural King Supply.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I thought you were at Old Navy or something.
No.
Oh, okay.
But clothing was like the biggest department though.
Oh, really?
So that was a learning curve.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it is a tough department to work in. Just so, especially when you're hanging up, when you get like a couple pallets of Carhartt stuff.
Oh, I bet.
That's physical labor.
I never thought about that.
Oh, my gosh.
The clothing would be way heavier.
Everything comes in a cardboard box. Every piece of clothing is in a plastic bag, and then it's folded together with pins, and it's got tissue paper in it. It's an enormous amount of garbage, a huge amount of garbage. And then you're lifting like these insulated coveralls, and it's tough. And you got the little old ladies over there doing it because nobody else wants to go over there.
Huh. And so what prompted you to leave the city job, or the city job, to go back to the farm?
So I did not like it. Like I did it initially. My last semester of college before Christmas break was over, I'd probably been thinking about it for a while, but I just told mom and dad, like, I'm not going to farm. And like, that was always the plan forever. There was never another plan. I was going to farm. Was
this your Rumspringa? Were you running away and sowing your wild oats?
Yeah, some one of those TV shows. That was me. No, I don't. I think some of it has to do. I don't think I knew at the time why. Is like a gut thing, maybe. But I was of course, a farm kid growing up on the farm. But like my core group of friends were all from town. So like when high school and college finished, everybody left but me.
Oh.
So like it's like me and Nicole. That was it.
Was it embarrassing? Did it feel like they had gone out and
it was more like what am I going to miss?
Oh. Cuz I remember when I was young, like being like, oh, the people that stay in Eureka, Illinois, like how silly, they're so small-minded. Now that I'm almost 40, I can be like, they didn't get the ticket for like going out and but they have deep relationships in their community, people they know for generations.
Those are my friends now. They're like, if I could find something that pays me as well as I do in Chicago or Indianapolis, I'd come back home.
Yeah.
So they want to come back home, but they can't. I found that out. But then now that getting into it, there's others that stayed too. So it's like, my dad was the farmer and now I'm the farmer. The guy that was in my mom and dad's class that ran the jewelry store in town, his two boys run it now. My friends, or one of my classmates, parents that ran the big real estate place in town. Now he's at the real estate place.
You must be in an unusual town, somewhat like mine. But you talk to somebody like Jared McDaniel, and he points out.
Yeah, there's I'm rural, and then that's different.
So how far away are you from a town?
I'm 10 minutes from Monticello, which is like 5,000-6,000 people. And
you can get groceries there and a couple fast food restaurants.
In Illinois, Indiana Beach is in my town.
Okay.
So
I didn't realize you were that far north.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's more than corn in Indiana. If you've heard that, that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when I was up at that Notre Dame game, I wasn't that far from your house.
I don't care about Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, I was at a Notre Dame game, and I didn't realize how close you were.
Yeah.
So when you came back to farming, was this just like giving up, or did you just like, my city?
What
were you doing at the farm supply store?
So I got hired. They had a job fair because they were opening a new store in our town. They did a lot of. They went into old Kmart's as Kmart was falling apart. Right. So they went into the old Kmart in our town. So the only thing I never would have thought about working retail, like ever. I think so after I graduated, I just kept working on the farm like I did every summer while I looked for a job. And then this Roking thing came along and I was like, well, I'll apply. I think the only other interview I had was like at a car dealership, sell cars. And I was like, I went to the interview. I was like, why am I here? I hope they don't offer this job to me because I really don't want it.
You're the extreme introvert now.
This would be horrible.
This would be literally prison for Brian Scott.
Like I'm like searching monster.com or whatever.
Wow.
For anything. But anyway, so this came along. If you got hired on the management crew, like you got to work at the store for several months before it was open. So that's what interested me. Like, I really like behind the scenes stuff.
You would get a big view of that.
Yeah. So like I was one of the first 5 people hired. And so for like 3 months, there was just 5 of us like moving the Kmart shelves into the Rural King position and setting up cash registers with the IT guys and stuff. So that was cool. And it was different. And I really did like it at first. And I found out my manager, Kelly, he came from Kmart. And a lot of guys came from like Lowe's and Home Depot. They were managing those stores. They really liked Rural King because at the time because our store was store number 27.
Okay, before they got really big.
Yeah, they're down in Florida now and all kinds of stuff. But because if you were the store manager, they let you run your store. If you came from one of those huge places, like
you're just a cog in a wheel.
Your entire day was on a spreadsheet for you,
right?
Basically. So they really enjoyed the freedom of it. So I remember going into work the first day, and Kelly sat me down. He's like, "Do you know why I hired you?" And I hated making a resume because all I ever did was work on the farm in the summer. I didn't do an internship in college. I didn't do anything. I worked on the farm in the summer. That was it. And
but what does somebody need to know more than that? Like farm kid working on the farm? Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, I was like, I don't know why you hired me as assistant manager. And he's like, he goes, you don't, and he'd been in retail like forever. And he's like, you don't have any bad habits. He goes, I don't have to break any bad habits that you have.
Oh, that's so
because you don't know anything.
You don't know anything. I hired you because you're a blank slate.
I could mold you.
That's good.
So then he went back to the store that was in his hometown a few miles away about a year. And then I became the store manager of that store.
Oh.
So and actually in between there, the position for ag department buyer came open. And I was encouraged to take it because I didn't have buying experience, but I knew what I was talking about with the stuff I would be buying. So I thought about it for a few days, I think. And this about a year after I was out of college. So Nicole and I were getting married in a couple months, and she had a really good job that she liked. And I was like, well, we don't. And I didn't know if I'd like it.
This would require you to move?
I didn't move to Illinois. I learned it's Mattoon. It's not Mattoon, it's Mattoon. That's where headquarters is at. So, yeah, I would have had to move to Mattoon and worked in the corporate office there. And so I don't even know if I would have got it. I didn't even try to apply for it.
How long did you do that manager job?
So I ended up moving to another store a couple towns over, and I ran that one for almost 3 years. And the last 2 years, I was looking for a job constantly the last 2 years.
Is it a job that paid well?
It wasn't awesome. If I got all my bonuses and everything, 50 to 55.
Okay, so a few years out of school, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad because it was kind of funny.
It's not that Wall Street money.
My favorite thing, my favorite thing was because I was store manager. I was like 26 or something. Was I'd be out in the middle of the floor and somebody asked me for some like ridiculous deal on something, and I'd be like, no. And then like 5 minutes later, like, you know, store manager up to the service desk, and I'd walk up there and like, yeah, it's still no.
So people try and make deals with the...
Oh, man. My favorite one was... I did learn a lot. And I became... my wife will tell you, I had to become less introverted. Like, I had to deal with people. I had 35 people under me. I had customers coming in all the time. And so we sold, like, in ag, we sold... like those Ace rotomold tanks, the big plastic tanks for fertilizer or whatever, stuff like that. So a guy was looking for one of a certain amount of gallons, and what you call a pickup tank, like it fits over the fenders in the bed of your pickup, takes up most of the bed, was the right gallons. Or no, it was the right shape. It was the shape he needed. But next to it was what you call a leg tank, which takes like metal hoops over it. It's a lot more heavy duty. There's a lot more plastic in it. It's a lot more complicated shape. And I think that the pickup tank was like $300. And the leg tank was like $700 some or something like that. And he's like, well, neither one of them is really what I need, but the leg tank works better. So why don't you give me that for the price of the pickup tank, the saddle tank?
Because it doesn't fit what he needs. Yeah.
No. And he's trying to do this to me.
Can you make deals at places like that? If somebody came in?
They actually, I think at one point they did away with it because Rural King ran pretty lean to begin with.
And if you got a store manager,
we had pretty regular sales, like 10%, and like a bag sale, like Menards does or whatever. So, and then my saying I came up with working there is, whenever I hear somebody say the customer is always right, I'm like, no. I said because some of them are wrong, like that guy. Some of them are just wrong, and a surprising amount of them are trying to steal from you. I learned that was pretty shocking. How many people steal?
Really?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I almost went into, if I had stayed there, I probably would have gone into loss prevention because I liked catching people stealing stuff.
Were you good at it?
I was okay. Not like the loss prevention people. We didn't have people, like every 10 stores had like a loss prevention person. So like we didn't have one in the store all the time. Uh-huh. But man, when you watch them come question somebody and just see how they would trip people up.
Really?
Like asking the same question 20 times with different words.
And eventually somebody, if they're lying, gets the wrong answer.
Yeah, I really liked catching, probably especially employees stealing.
And your employees stole from you?
Oh, quite a few. Yeah.
And like, what are they trying to do? They're tucking shirts in and they're grabbing shoes?
Oh, it'd be different stuff. At each store, I got a high school kid stealing the refills for a vending machine, like Mountain Dew. And stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And we used to have that, like at Christmas time, we'd have like that $5 DVD bin. Uh-huh. That was a fun interview with the loss prevention people. He rang out a bunch of them for like $1 instead of $5. And just because somebody else at the store knew him, the customer was his mom. So like that's what the loss prevention people did. They were going through this whole thing. Like it wasn't until the end until they showed the video and like, well, that's your mom, right? And he was like, oh God. But they didn't know the cash register as well as I did. They're like, can you just change the price really quick? Because we had the thing, if it was under $5, a cashier could do it because it saves time.
Right.
If it was over $5, a manager had to come do an override. So he was able to do it because the item was $5. But I had loss prevention had me go through, like, can he do that by accident? Like, he just accidentally did it because he was talking to his mom. And I was going through it like in my head. I was like, no, it's like 12 keystrokes. So it wasn't in that. And he had to do it like 10 times.
And how does somebody react if they just got caught helping their mother steal something?
He was pretty worried. And we did this a few times. He was 18. So basically we fired and trespassed him because the policy was kind of like, unless it was really bad, like you don't need to send a 18-year-old to jail.
Yeah, is he on his way? Is he on his way to prison at this point? Was he that type of life? Or?
He did come back in the store a couple times, and I was like, I just pulled him aside. I was like, Nathan, you cannot come in here, or I will have the police take you out next time.
And he just was like, hey, I really need something.
That finally got him. Okay. To get out of there, and I don't know. I do have a lot of funny retail stories.
So I'm a little. We probably won't be able to go that much longer.
Right. Yeah.
But this is fascinating, and of course you can come back. We had talked a few months ago about how fun it would be to do I'm a farmer in the change my mind kind of mentality. Right now, what are the issues that people have with farming that you find that they're interested in hearing about?
Yeah, like I do think the GMO thing it seems like it's really died down to me. It's either died down or I've just avoided it because I feel like my piece.
It definitely feels way calmer to me. Yeah, yeah. And it did a few years into me working at Monsanto.
When you have people like Mark Linus switching sides on that conversation.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It was a big, what was it? He started something like. or he was.
He's a part of that Cornell Alliance for Science. It was good,
yeah.
but I mean, like, all the energy is out of that. Anybody that was gonna flip on GMOs, like, who else out there would need to?
Yeah. And
so, what are the issues then?
A lot of there's still a lot of people that think farming is corporate, and like.
And when they say they think it's
like,
corporate, what do you think they think?
They think like I am an employee of a seed company, that I'm doing the same thing I did at the store. I'm running this for someone else, which is the case for almost nobody. You're getting into that with livestock a little bit. We've been out of livestock for a long time.
Or farm managers, which they become employees.
I mean, there's some of it, but most of it's just like my farm. Except when we get help in the fall, it's me and my dad. That's it.
Yeah. Do you think that? Well, I was just going to give you a leading question. I'll just say what I think. I think that farmers run the risk of being perceived as, if not corporate farmers, or if not run by corporations, then they are corporation or corporate fat cats themselves.
Yeah.
I think one of the dangers of, so Jason Malk talked about the subsidies for insurance.
Right.
And I think one of the vulnerabilities that the farming community has is talking about those things, because it does look like those subsidies limit risk for people that are already instantiated, and you don't have turnover. Right. So new farmers, it's a lot harder for new people to get in because you don't have some farmers failing.
And I haven't thought too hard about that for a while. But so for people that don't know, crop insurance is subsidized. So, and like when I get my bill or my policy statement, I see it on there, but it's not free to me either. So it's roughly.
So if it was $100 of policy, how much of it would be subsidized?
60 to 80.
That's pretty subsidized.
It's a lot. So, but the price of crop insurance changes every year. It's complicated. It's market prices and the spring price and fall price and what your level of coverage is. But we're on roughly 2,500 acres. Out of pocket, we're paying $40,000 to $50,000 every year out of our pocket. So it's not even subsidized. It's not cheap. And I do wonder if the subsidy was gone.
If the price would return?
If it was gone in a vacuum and I was paying $80 to $100 an acre,
right,
I probably just wouldn't buy it. But surely if it goes away, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Something will take its place. Somebody will innovate something. I'm not an insurance expert,
to me, like when you start having the government's going to kick in a certain amount of money and make it possible for you to spend 40, there's every incentive for the insurance company to keep raising up that price, because the amount it hurts you, not that much. The amount that it hurts the government, they don't care. It's not their money.
Yeah.
So they're just skimming right off the top.
And then now you have this these market facilitation program, which is Trump's thing of, trying to keep us happy during the trade war. So
how's it going? Are farmers happy over the trade war?
Well, so I'm only going to speak for corn and soybeans, because I'm not going to pretend to know about anything else or even the same thing I do in other states, because the MFP payments varied by county. How they figured out how much you're hurt by trade by county in several weeks' time, the way the government normally works, I have no idea, because the two counties we farm in were $10 an acre different.
Really?
Yeah. So, but it's one of those things, like, I can't come out looking good on this, I don't think, to non-farm people, but put it out there. So we've gotten 2 rounds of these MFP payments, and you have to jump through a few hoops, but not much.
This is thought of to make sure that the price support for soybeans, which China bought a ton of, stays there. So roughly before the trade war started, beans were $10 a bushel. Shortly after, they were $8. Now they're
getting back up towards 9. So they're trying to kind of make that difference up to us, which it's fine. I've never found a farmer yet that, like, nobody, I don't know who was asking for those payments. Like, I don't think it came from the farm. I'm not like a Farm Bureau guy or anything. Maybe that was involved too, but it seemed like it came from the Washington side, not people asking for it. Because we just want the market back. That's all we want, is to be on the playing field. But
do you think you're going to have the market back when China has 50% less hogs because of African swine fever?
That doesn't make the news. Or
This
it's
is
not
the
the
most-
bulk of it. Because the trade war is a big deal, but them losing half their hog population, they were eating those soybeans. That's a big deal.
That's right.
Without the trade war, that's a big deal.
I think so. I've been following this African swine fever for months, and I keep trying to bring it up because one, you don't want to panic. Like, it's not like it spreads to human beings, and you have to worry about that. The challenge is a huge amount of global stability is based on, can poor people get access to meat, protein in particular, in China? If they can't, we don't actually know what will happen. If you knock out 50% of the pork population, now Brazil, their market for soybeans goes down as well. I mean, like, there are all sorts of weird knock-on effects.
Yeah. And like if you're in the top ranks in China, you can't let 1 billion people get hungry.
No, that's right.
You be gone. Which I remember when that whole Arab Spring thing happened, after it was kind of all over, I read an article, everything you read was like political and all this stuff. It got traced back to Egypt had a bad wheat crop and people got hungry. So they took to the streets.
Well, and from what I heard, it was just a slight, like, between 1 to 5 cent per kilo change. But that amount for wheat changing, and these people knew they weren't going to be able to eat, or the poorest of them. And what people forget when they're at the top of the food chain, you're shopping at Trader Joe's, you can go to Target, you don't have to worry about putting gas in your car. Is that there are people that if they don't have, if the prices go too high, they literally can't eat.
Yeah.
Like that's not something that I have ever faced in my life outside of college when I'm, if I really needed to, I could. But like in their circumstance, they went from having pork once a year at a holiday to then once a month, once a week, once every day. Now it's a part of their culture. If it starts going where they can't, they're going to start feeling poor.
Right.
People don't want to feel poor.
Well, so we grew a couple 100 acres of popcorn, and corn is not a big deal. And like corn and exports to China with corn is like not even on like the chart. Soybeans, it's number 1. Like corn, it's pretty low. But with the popcorn, we just contracted our acres yesterday. So we were talking about it a little bit with our field guy. That's
saying somebody bought a futures contract on the popcorn you put out there.
Well, no, they contracted our acreage.
Right.
To
plant this much corn. This is how much we want out of it.
Basically. Well, popcorn's nice because we cannot over or under deliver. We're only contracting the acres. They'll take whatever we produce.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So there's no risk on that side of it. But anyway, so as China's middle class comes up, I can't even tell you the rate. It's ridiculous. Like the amount of movie theaters a day that would open. That is huge for the popcorn industry.
Oh.
So if you can't ship a container of popcorn, that's a big problem right now.
Wow. Where else grows popcorn?
So we used to be number 1.
When you say we, you mean Indiana?
United States.
United States.
Yeah. Indiana's number 2 in the States. And my buddies Ryan and Zach in Nebraska will tell you Nebraska is number 1. And I will tell you they cheat because they irrigate it. So, but several years ago, like Argentina really ramped up and they grow like twice as much popcorn as we do.
Interesting.
So Argentina and then the United States.
Okay.
So, but it's huge. As they get more middle class, they're doing what you and I do. They go to the movies on Friday night or whatever.
Right.
And they eat popcorn. So it's a huge, huge market over there. because there's a thing, we have a grower meeting every year, like your popcorn sales here really only like go up as there's more people as total market share. Because like forever Americans have ate X amount of popcorn.
Right. And you're not going to have wild changes to that. There may be some popcorn fad that inks it up.
It's died down. You see all this pre-pop stuff now with all the crazy flavors like potato chips.
Oh, yeah. Actually, my buddy, Hot Charlie, have you ever had his popcorn?
No.
We got to find a way for you to get it. I had it, and I was like, I'm only going to have a couple of kernels. And, like, I wake up 30 minutes later with, like, popcorn all over my face. I'm not saying that just because he was on my show. I was really, really good.
I think it's died down some, but when we grow for Weaver popcorn, and when they started doing the pre-pop stuff, there was, like, a few years in a row, like, sales were, like, 300% up each year. So the pre-pop stuff did kind of
I don't like popping popcorn, and I think I still have it. I moved it yesterday. I had your popcorn in here because I cleaned up. Yeah, I don't have a microwave. Do you have a microwave? Well, you have kids.
Yeah,
kids.
Yeah, but some people like to do it on the stove or the air popper or whatever. All our stuff is microwave that we grow, so that's what I.
What's the difference in growing for microwave popcorn versus stovetop?
That part's not different, like what Hot Charlie's is probably going to have. Mm-hmm. So there's two types of pop. There's butterfly, which is what we grow. That's what blows up and like you get at the movie theater. And then all this pre-pop flavored stuff is mushroom. It's more like a ball. Because if you put all that flavoring on it after it's popped and it packages, the butterfly it's not strong enough. Like it falls apart.
Oh,
so like if the pop, like you can kind of squish the bottom and it won't break.
Yeah,
it's tougher.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that's why the microwave and the movie theater is fluffy stuff, and the pre-flavored stuff is, and like caramel corn is like the mushroom.
Oh man!
And they also the movie theater's like the biggest pop volume, so they can sell you like a bucket of air for $15.
Oh, whoa! Give me your prediction on the biggest issue of farming, like, and the public in the next 5 years. If it's not GMOs, is it pesticides? What is it?
Maybe some on pesticide. Water pollution is a big deal, and that whole kind of corporate false mindset thing. Well, water is a big one. And we do play a part in it, and we need to be responsible. I think farming is getting better about that all the time, which I like to say, if nutrients are going down the Wabash River to the Ohio to the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico from my farm, like, I don't want that because that fertilizer cost me money.
Right.
So that's just money leaving that didn't do anything for me.
Right.
So I don't want it leaving either. But I also think cities aren't taking as much responsibility as they could. One thing I remember is, we always get hit for the Gulf dead zone, and then there's like a Lake Erie or whatever problems up there. I remember a few years ago, Buffalo, New York had like 7 feet of snow in like one event. And then a couple days later, it was like 60 degrees or something, and like it all melted. And I remember seeing the mayor on TV saying, it might have even been Governor Cuomo, said from the city of Buffalo, X many millions and millions and millions of human sewage is going in the lake, and there's nothing we can do about it because we can't handle the snow melt. But nobody cares.
If
an ounce of nitrogen runs off my farm, I'm the worst person in the world.
I had Dwayne Faber on, and he said the exact same thing. He was like, up in Washington State, they had huge amounts of rain. Yeah. They had to discharge, and I think they even discharge it even when there's not huge amounts of rain. They're going out and putting it out in the ocean. And he's like, if you guys took your own medicine, I heard something.
Well, and then sewage has antibiotics and heavy metals in it.
Oh yeah,
which, I mean, the farm stuff it's regulated.
Yeah. I heard a really good piece of advice the other day. I actually told Jason on the last episode about this guy that I've been watching on YouTube. So I'm going to give you my guy. I said it on the podcast before, and you'll have to give me some new person that I haven't looked up before. I think this is a good game to play with your friends. The guy that I've been listening to, his name is Wes Watson, and he is he's a paroled convict. He was in federal prison for 10 years, and he has a shaved head, and he goes shirtless on his podcast, and he's like huge muscles and tattoos all over the place. And like, you can tell that he was not a good man.
Yeah.
Like not a good guy.
Right.
And that it's really similar to Dante's Inferno in the sense that it's like he was in hell for 10 years and he came back and is like, hey, I know how to straighten out your life. And it's to do put this kind of structure in your life.
Right.
And I think it's worth checking out. So Wes Watson is his name.
Okay. Wes Watson.
All right. What's yours?
So my oldest son and I, we watch quite a bit he likes educational stuff. Uh-huh. He's kind of a geek like me a little bit. We watch a lot of guy has a YouTube channel, Smarter Every Day.
Oh, yeah, Destin.
You know him?
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good one.
When I started my company, Articulate Ventures, the one that I run now, way back when I was living in D.C., I started a blog. And my blog was, at first, because I didn't have any content, it was giving awards, quote unquote, to people that were explaining things simply. And it was just a picture of a puppy with a ribbon or something. And he was the first one I gave. And this is when he was just getting started. He maybe had like 10,000 followers.
Right.
And he wrote me. He was great. I think
That's
that guy,
cool.
Destin.
Yeah, he's tweeted me a couple times.
Really?
He did this whole thing where he like poked a hole in the side of like an inflatable pool. He's all about laminar flow.
Yeah, he is.
And then we went to a water park and stood under a thing. I took a picture of me and Matthew. We're like, this is laminar flow. And we tweeted Smarter Every Day. And he's like, yeah, it is.
Dude,
So,
you should invite him out to
cool.
your farm. There's no doubt he would love that.
Yeah, I would like to
get Purdue to bring him out. He's an engineer extravagant, and then have him come out to your farm.
I think one thing that'd be super. I've tweeted him a couple of times and not got any feedback, but the farming simulator game is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And my son plays it a lot. And he watches YouTube channels of
just people playing farm
guys
simulator.
that are doing like let's play.
Millions of people watch that stuff. It's insane.
Daggerwin is the one guy he's got millions of followers.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like Giant Software, I think, is who makes the game. It's like, if I could get them to like get a couple of those Let's Play guys to come out and drive the tractors, that would be freaking awesome.
Oh yeah. That's a great idea, man. That's a great idea. We'll snip this and you can send it to him. And what's the name of the company that runs that?
I think it's Giant Software.
Well, I hope it is, because you're giving somebody a shout out.
Yeah.
So Giant Software, bring some of your people that are doing Let's Play videos and TikToks about farming simulator.
We'll put them in a tractor.
Right. And have them have a real Indiana summer with some cool, like, look around and how things work.
There you go.
That sounds great. Well, if people wanted to find you on social media, how would they do it?
Go find me, Instagram, Twitter, at The Farmer's Life, Facebook.com/The Farmer's Life. Just The Farmer's Life. You'll find me. And
they'll find videos of, like, what it's like to be farmer, right?
Trying to get more video-centric in this 2019, 2020.
And I feel like we should give a big shout out to JP Loves Cotton on Twitter. That's Janice. She is a woman that I would say is probably the most under-recognized figure in helping change the conversation about things like GMOs and corporations. She was just a woman that started a blog. And then when Monsanto got into their existential crisis where they were like, oh my God, people hate us enough that they'll tear down our fences. We need somebody that can help us figure out how to do blogs and social media. And they gave her a chance to do something really cool. Yeah. I think the biggest mistake was that she was not put in charge, because I think a lot of people know, but maybe it is a little under there. She did so much with non-farm bloggers. Right. Which anybody that's been in online agricultural advocacy for a while, the phrase is always preaching to the choir. And how do we talk to people that are off the farm? Because it's hard. It's hard to get them. Like I say, if I put in pictures of big green tractors on Facebook, I'm going to attract a bunch of farmers. I think the biggest credit that I can give Janice is when I go out and give a speech, I'm talking about philosophy and I'm talking about these big picture ideas.
Yeah.
She shows up and she helps people figure out, how do I be like Brian Scott? How do I start a thing?
Great at that. Or so I can hear her voice saying it. Like if somebody's on the opposite side of something, Janice will be, I hear that you're really passionate about that.
Yeah.
She's so great at bridging that gap on two totally opposite sides.
So I worked very, very closely with her, and I am extremely disagreeable, and she is highly agreeable. And I don't know that I'd ever met anybody that was able to get me to be like, all right, yeah, no, I see their point now. Good job. So anyway, we've done enough, but I am grateful to Janice because she introduced me to you. And I think you have traveled all over the world talking about farming, reaching millions and millions and millions of people. And for those that are never going to get out and actually get to go on a farm, they get to see what it's like to be a farmer in the United States in 2020. And so thanks for all the work you do. And thanks for being a real good friend to me, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Vance. Good to know you.
Good, man. Thanks.
Yep.